There's a specific moment in this hobby when you realize the fish you bought is no longer a fish, it's an animal that just outgrew your ability to pretend everything is fine. The animal inside the glass box now needs a turning radius and a legal team. And the worst part is you didn't even mess up. So if you want to keep your fish safe and your house structurally intact, go ahead and subscribe so I can feed my baby. Because today we're talking aquarium fish that don't just outgrow tanks, they outgrow houses. The giant gourami. At the store, a giant gourami looks like a background fish. Flat body, soft eyes, and movement that feels like it's buffering on hotel Wi-Fi. Nothing about the juvenile version suggests long-term danger, but adult size lands around 24 to 28 inches. At that length, the fish stops being large for an aquarium and starts being a love seat that makes eye contact. Labyrinth biology explains why growth never really ends. Air breathing evolved for stagnant swamps, which means durability, long lifespan, and zero interest in respecting your square footage. Growth slows down, but it does not stop, and their personality follows the same curve. Early shyness fades, confidence arrives with mass, and territorial behavior replaces politeness. Instead of chasing tank mates, the fish drifts into their space until something smaller realizes it has lost the argument and its apartment. Normal movement alone requires 300 to 500 gallons. This one doesn't outgrow its enclosure loudly, it becomes your landlord. The pacu. Most people buy this thinking it's a piranha, but that misunderstanding ages like milk. The juvenile version looks round, calm, and shaped like a polite dinner roll, but their adult size reaches 3 to 4 feet. At that scale, the mouth becomes a demolition permit. Jaw structure evolved for crushing nuts and fruit. Molar-like teeth generate serious bite force, and aquariums were not part of that evolutionary meeting. Driftwood turns into a chew toy. PVC pipes fail surprise stress tests, and heaters get reclassified as snacks. Vegetarian diets don't prevent destruction when jaw power scales with body mass. Anything hard inside the tank becomes a let's see what happens button. Long-term housing lands in the several hundred gallon range just to keep the fish from remodeling nightly. This fish doesn't eat tank mates, it eats loud-bearing decor. The Asian arowana. Juveniles look unreal. Metallic scales, thin body, and big eyes that make it look permanently impressed by your living room. Everything about the baby version feels manageable, but adult length hits 3 to 4 feet. That measurement alone turns a tank into a liability waiver. Surface predator wiring explains the chaos. Upward strike instincts evolved for hunting birds and bugs above the waterline. Your lid is now a theoretical concept. Reflections become enemies, floating objects look edible, and ceilings become aspirational. Frames bend, movement without pacing requires roughly 1,000 gallons. That volume doesn't create happiness, it just delays the fish's WWE career. Also, Asian arowanas are illegal in the United States. This one doesn't outgrow its tank, it outgrows the law. Clown knifefish. The baby version looks elegant. Ribbon-thin body, smooth movement, and quiet behavior. Nothing about the juvenile phase signals crime, but adult size reaches 3 to 4 feet, and nocturnal biology explains why tanks empty themselves. They have electric sensing and stealth strikes that define their hunting style. Darkness becomes feeding time, and community tanks become a missing persons report. Disappearances start quietly, and owners assume the fish store made a counting error. Turning radius becomes the next failure point. Long bodies require long tanks. Short enclosures force permanent U-turns and emotional damage. This one doesn't outgrow its enclosure loudly, it turns it into a cold case. The iridescent shark. Now stores sell these as community fish, but reality sells something else. Juveniles behave calmly under fluorescent light, and nothing about the baby version really signals disaster, but adult size again reaches 3 to 4 feet, and growth alone wouldn't doom this species, the nervous system does. Migratory river biology wired this fish for long straight runs, and the glass rectangle breaks that programming. Startle responses trigger flight behavior, and flight behavior meets walls in aquariums. Speed turns into spinal compression, and jaws meet glass. Normal behavior for this fish requires thousands of gallons. Most never get that. this fish doesn't outgrow its tank, it speedruns anxiety. Red-tail catfish. The juvenile looks like a hot dog that achieved sentience. They have a short body, oversized head, and whiskers doing absolutely nothing to help. Everything about the baby version screams novelty pet. Then the growth happens. Adult size reaches 4 to 5 feet, and suddenly the mouth becomes a business model. Ambush predator biology explains this betrayal. Slow cruising hides explosive feeding strikes, which means patience replaces speed, and subtlety replaces mercy. Anything that fits inside the mouth becomes inventory. Eventually, that'll include every other fish in your tank. Waste production also scales brutally along with body mass. Filtration systems start losing philosophical arguments with reality, and water changes turn into infrastructure projects. Heaters snap under their body weight, and lids crack during feeding surges. Life expectancy runs 20 to 30 years. That's not a pet commitment, that's a fish mortgage. This one doesn't outgrow a house, it converts your house into a meat-powered filtration shrine. The tiger shovel-nosed catfish. This fish looks like it was designed by someone who only watches monster movies. Spotted body, predator face, and the general energy of something that should not be sold next to Neon Tetris. The baby version feels manageable, then the adult size hits 45 feet, and the pacing problems start. Evolution built this species for long river runs, which means tanks turn into anxiety treadmills. Open water cruising becomes glass surfing, and predatory wiring keeps appetite permanently active, so feeding time scales with body size instead of common sense. Stocking lists start shrinking, and owners assume aggression, but the fish is just doing inventory management, and waste output climbs quietly. Filtration systems lose arguments with biology, and rehoming posts appear once turning radius becomes a daily negotiation. This fish doesn't fit in rooms, it colonizes them. Alligator gars. Now the juvenile alligator gar looks prehistoric and adorable in a way that feels like a trap. Tiny armor plates, a little alligator face, and maximum I can fix him energy. And for a while that illusion holds. Then adult length lands around 6 to 10 feet, and the word tank quietly leaves the conversation. Air-breathing biology explains the scale problem. Surface gulping supports massive body mass, which means evolution never planned for drywall or renters. Turning radius becomes the real limiting factor here. Most homes fail geometry tests long before filtration becomes the main issue. At that point, ponds become mandatory. Structural engineers enter the chat. Neighbors start asking questions, and mail carriers develop theories. This one isn't an aquarium fish, it's a homeowners association violation with teeth. The giant snakehead. The baby version looks sleek, calm, and suspiciously well behaved. Long body, smooth movement, and 0 red flags. Everything about the juvenile phase feels like false advertising. Adult size reaches 3 to 4 feet, and confidence arrives with it. Their air-breathing physiology supports extreme endurance, which means this fish never really gets tired of being angry. Aggression also scales with body mass, so tank mates start disappearing in a way that feels less like predation and more like hostile takeovers. Territorial behavior arrives like a software update no one approved. The species doesn't just hunt, it takes over. Legal status also shows up late to the conversation. Bans appear after people already own them, and government agencies become surprise tank mates. This one outgrows tanks and laws simultaneously. The arapaima. The baby arapaima looks reasonable. Slender body, mild temperament, and the kind of calm energy that makes you think, oh, I can manage this. Which is the same sentence people say right before buying a boat. That lie lasts months. Adult length reaches 8 to 10 feet. That's not a large fish. That's I now own a hallway that can breathe. At full size, an arapaima is longer than most couches and tall enough in the water column to make eye contact with you while you're standing. River predator biology explains why this immediately collapses. This species evolved for floodplains and open rivers where turning around doesn't require paperwork. Air-breathing physiology supports absurd growth rates as well. Yep, it breathes air, which means this fish occasionally surfaces like a haunted submarine to remind you it's still your responsibility. Growth eventually hits multiple feet per year. That turns I'll upgrade later into a scheduling error. Indoor turning radius fails almost immediately, corners become geometry problems, and ponds become mandatory. And your electric bills are gonna develop personality, and somehow juveniles still get sold online. This is not a pet, this is a civil engineering project that eats Every one of these fish gets sold as a baby, and each one of them looks manageable for about 5 minutes. Every one of them eventually reaches a size where your tank, your floor, and your life plan all start losing arguments at the same time. None of these fish are evil, they're just doing exactly what their biology told them to do. If you want to learn more, check out the video on screen. I'm Art Gills, and I'll see you in the next one.